just thought for fun. I wasn't going to get emotional about it. I remember one of Cecily's funniest stories you could see at work was when she, and it's going to be funny, funnier than this. And I don't know why, but I think she wants to tell it. But, and I made her tell it about 1,000 times. But when she was on the Star Trek cruise and then decided to take a group on a trip, and then I'd love for you to share that.
You guys got time for a story?
Yeah.
It's not in the book, and I don't know why. It never, because this thing was a nightly email, it was whatever occurred to me, and it never specifically occurred to me to tell this story. Now, George Takei from Star Trek, on his website, he tells his version of the story, and it's amusing. But to hear Cecily tell the story was an unmatchable experience, and I can't do justice to it. But I'll try and give it a certain amount of concision here. Cecily had played this character movie on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and she started getting invited to fan conventions. You guys know what those are? Yeah, and she would go to these conventions and sign pictures, and it was a very different. I've been doing that at Supernatural fan conventions the last couple of years, and it's a very different experience with the Star Trek fans, because it's possible someone will come up to you and ask for your autograph and tell you how great they think you are, and never once speak anything but Klingon. That doesn't happen so much on Supernatural. Well, we got invited to do a Star Trek cruise on a ship with a whole bunch of Star Trek fans. And they promised us that we would not be unduly molested. And we thought, cruise, free food. We're actors. So we went on this thing, and George Takei and some of the other Star Trek actors were on it. And Cecily was great at these things. She's really, really great rapport with her fans. But she was a real travel freak. And the cruise was to go from L.A. down the coast of Central America through the Panama Canal and back up to Florida. So it was like 2 weeks. 2 weeks on a boat to start. A really great thing happened. About 4 days into the trip, I got a movie. And I had to get off the boat in Acapulco and go shoot the movie, leaving Cecily on a boat full of Star Trek by herself. Well, she decided that she wanted to go visit the Mayan ruins in Guatemala when the boat docked at East Guatemala. And so she went to the people who were handling the tour, and they said, well, the plane is sold out. There's X number of passengers that they. But if you can get enough people willing to sign up for it, we'll charter another plane. And she did. She I think, promised autographs or something for anybody who would sign up for this imminent death trip that she had planned for them. So this group of Star Trek fans get on these two planes. Now this is Guatemalan tourist industry. There's a word you don't hear much. Guatemala. Well, they put them on these planes, and Cecily said she knew that it was going to be kind of an interesting trip when this kid who looked like he was about 17 in jeans and a t-shirt came up the aisle and moved the towel away from the cockpit and sat down at the wheel and started revving up the engine. And so they took off, they flew, and they're flying, these little prop planes. They hold about 12, 15 people, I think. they're flying, and Cecily's not a great flyer. She was the world's worst flyer. She was, you know, watching an airplane movie made her scream. She didn't like it, so they're flying like they fly, and they keep passing all these mountains, and the mountains are up there, out the window, because they're flying between them. And they finally get to the landing strip in the middle of the Guatemalan jungle. And there's, I mean, it's an interesting tourist site because there's nothing there but Mayan ruins, apparently. I got off in Acapulco. So I don't know. So they hiked through the jungle to the ruins. They spent the day climbing up and down the ruins. But they had said, be back at the plane by 4. You must be back at the plane by 4. Okay, why? Because the planes have no lights. The runway has no lights. The runway where we land has no lights. You must be back by 4. So, everybody does their tracing up and down the ruins, and I've seen pictures. They're sweating like pigs. Why go? But 4 o'clock, they all got. Even Cecily was back by 4. If you knew her, you would know that she deserves some sort of medal because on time. Cecily's rule was, if I leave the house before it starts, I'm on time. Well, she got back by 4. They get there, they get on the plane, and the plane goes. And the guy with the T-shirt moves the towel back, and he comes down the aisle, and he comes out the door, and he walks around to the engine, and he goes, wank. And somebody else comes over from the other plane and goes, wank, wank. They can't figure out what the deal is. So they radio for another plane. It's 10 after 4. Another plane has to fly in from Tegucigalpa. The plane flies in. Somehow it manages to get there before the sun has completely disappeared. They board that thing, and by the time everyone's on board, it has started to rain, and it's dark, and the kid in the T-shirt says, I think I can make it. And they take off into a driving thunderstorm over the Guatemalan